which I don't want to dig too far into that because I love that sequence that I want everybody to go in. I want to jump back to Berkman and Goldman. I don't know how to tease this out, so I'll just ask it. When you read everything about them, when you're doing your research, at the end of it, do you look at them and say, these people are hypocrites? Do you think one's more of a hypocrite than the other? Because when it's all said and done, and again, you got to read the book just to get all the details to put it together yourself. But how did you feel at the end of it when you were wrapping this up?
Well, in a way, Berkman is less of a hypocrite, I think, because he's true to his values. I think his values were wrong. I have far less sympathy to Berkman because I think he just holds to this idea that terrorism is an important part of the, anarchist agenda and it was the right thing to do, when in fact it seems to me that one was not an ethical thing to do, and two, it was as a strategy for effecting change in the world, it was disastrous. They were kind of like wiped off. They were a major force in American politics for 20 or 30 years, and they just, through these series of actions that are detailed in the book, they basically just got wiped off the map and became effectively irrelevant for the rest of the 20th century. There are pockets of anarchism that show up in the 60s and a few other places, and there's some interesting figures intellectually in our world, like Noam Chomsky and David Graeber, the late David Graeber. But generally, it is not a mainstream political worldview, and I think it's a large part because of the decisions that they made back then. But at least Berkman stood by the values that he expressed, right? Goldman, who I am much more sympathetic to because she's just a fascinating person and she fought for a lot of other things in her life that, kind of reproductive freedom and things like that were valuable. And she's a unique figure in that period as just this commanding presence as a woman in politics in that period of time, kind of sexually liberated and kind of an amazing writer and speaker. So there's a lot of things about her that are kind of compelling as a historical figure. But I agree that if you had to call one of them a hypocrite, it's Goldman, because she really seems to want to have like both sides of it with the question of violence, that she spends all this time saying, I do not support violent acts, I don't support this. And yet, again and again at all these various points, when it really comes down to it, she's unable to fully renounce it. And if she had, you've got to remember that Gandhi is like inventing, nonviolent protest at this point. And so it was an idea that was in the air. Like she could have taken all her movements and all of her skills and all of her followers and done what Gandhi did in India to the American radical movement. And, that would be a different history.